Hello my friends, I'm Kayla and I'm still trying to find myself a hobby. If you've been around for a while, you might recognize these first two episodes in the series where I tried painting and then I tried cross stitching, and I did each of them for like a month and I listened to some audiobooks so I could make it bookish content while also doing something crafty with my hands, which makes me really happy. Now this series went on hiatus for quite a while for a very specific reason, and that's that the only crafty things that I wanted to do next, I need much more space for. And so I was like, I'll just like someday in the future when I have a garage or a shed or some kind of studio or something when I can really cultivate these hobbies, I will return to the series. One of them is just like generally woodworking. I know I want to purchase in my life, in my near future, some like equipment to build more things, because I've built like bookshelves, other shelves. I've only built shelves, which are pretty easy to do, and I want to get more into it, and I don't want to have to go somewhere else to someone else's location. Like, I know things exist also with the other one I really want to get into, which is pottery. I know I can go to a pottery studio. I know I can go somewhere where someone has a wheel and can teach me. But I'm very much as much as I can be on the internet sharing with thousands of people, a solo, like an independent, let me focus on my stuff and nobody look until I'm ready kind of artist. I'm not an artist. The third one I really want to get into is like glass. It's like stained glass. I just keep seeing all of these things on TikTok where people are like cutting glass and putting it in all of these different like stained glass. I want to do it. I have nowhere to do it. So these are things that I can look forward to in my future trying out. But as far as the pottery conversation, I randomly found myself in Michael's purchasing some clay for Liam's project for school that, yes, I helped a little bit with. And I found this stuff that's like air dry clay that you don't have to put in like an oven, a kiln, whatever. And it just dries after you leave it out for like 24 hours, and then you can paint it, you can color it, you can do whatever you want. And when I think about me and like clay stuff, I don't really want it to be large scope. Like, I don't really want to make vases and mugs and plates. I don't need the big wheel, but I also don't want to go so tiny. This is why I haven't done this until now, that it's like earrings. Like, I see so many cute, what is it called? Polymer clay that people do on TikTok. Again, TikTok ruins my life. Like, it always looks so cute and I love the aesthetic of it, but not for myself. So the whole clay work just like didn't make sense to me because it was big, useful things that I didn't really want to make, or it was tiny, adorable things I didn't really want to make. But I feel like there's something in the middle. This was inspired by this random video that I saw as I was scrolling, and it was somebody like completely unrelated. I think it was actually ceramic. They were at a thrift store and they found this little bowl of a bunch of little fruits, and it was just so cute, and it just acted as a piece. It didn't have to be useful. It didn't have to be wearable. It just was. And I was thinking, like, how fun would that be to just make some little fruits out of clay? So as I do with cultivating these new hobbies is I don't look into anything. I don't learn anything. I just go out and buy a bunch of stuff and figure it out along the way. So you are now with me for the next month as I try to figure out whatever this hobby is. It's not pottery. It's clay work, clay sculpture, molding, building, whatever this motion is, and then get it wet and then dab it and then smooth it. That's what I'm doing. So we'll do a quick throwback to when I just showed up at Michael's and bought everything that I saw. Michael's is so great because they're like, oh, you want to start this hobby? We have an entire aisle of everything that you need. But it's also so dangerous because it's like, hey, you want to start this hobby? We have everything you could possibly need, because it just dives right deep into the dark consumeristic behavior that I can often deny. But then I step foot in Michael's and it's like, I'm not just gonna get one type of clay, because what if it's not the perfect type of clay? Well, maybe I'll get a second type of clay so I can do some A/B testing. Maybe one cracks more than the other. Maybe one is just easier to use than the other. And then I see a roller and it says a clay roller specifically. And I'm like, well, I have to have the roller. And if I have to have the roller, where am I gonna roll it? I obviously need the branded cutting mat. And oh, right, it's a cutting mat. I'm gonna be cutting things. I need some cutters. And then there's the tool section, just like when I was buying paintbrushes. I'm not just gonna get a couple paintbrushes, I'm gonna get the whole kit. And then once I figure out the things that I want from the kit, I'll buy like maybe better versions of those or whatever. And so I see all of these different options, but then there's also this whole case and like how handy to have a whole case for it. So that's what I'm starting with. I feel like I didn't pick up that many things. I still spent $150 though. There were so many more things that I could buy. And now here we are ready to go. I am just gonna pull out the clay and figure it out. I actually have a live show, an art evening with my channel members, so they can talk me through it all. We can just hang out and we're all doing our little hobbies. So I'm not gonna start my audiobook now, but I will be listening to unlikable female characters throughout the next couple weeks. Maybe another book will pop in. I'm sure you already know what it is based on the thumbnail, but I don't. So I'll talk about this more later, but let's cut to some of the live show footage, I guess, of me just figuring out what I'm doing.
This reminds me of when I bought slime because I was having a midlife crisis, and playing with it was just like bringing back childhood memories. This is doing the same thing. You could psychoanalyze me here and say something about the way that I go into these trying to find a hobby videos. If I'm not mentally committing, it's like it doesn't matter if it's bad because I have no commitment to it being good. So I don't want to plan ahead, because if I take too much time and I want to make it something so specific and it doesn't turn out exactly the way I wanted, then it's just like, oh no, it was just a silly little, because if I fail, it doesn't matter. And I know with art, there is no failure. I'm learning that. This one is an eyebrow wand. Oh, and it came with a roller, so I didn't have to buy one. That's a shark fin.
Let's see this one. That was the most satisfying thing I've ever done. The fork. What a joy. Look at this one! It's like wire bristles. Oh, wow.
Oh, I put my Scrabble board right here because I just instantly thought Scrabble. Maybe because I thought it would be easy to make because I could just cut and I wouldn't have to do much like actual sculpting. And then I could carve the letter into it. And then when I paint it, I could paint it a different color than the tile. Wouldn't that be cute? How do I make sure it's the same size? Because it has to fit in the Scrabble hole. You should roll the clay over the board like a reverse cookie cutter. Oh my God. How do you even think of that? You're the smartest person I've ever met. Oh my gosh.
Now, can I precisely cut this? I can. Let me just try to make an A. Okay, so here's my tile board. Here is one that's done just the tile, and we'll see if it fits. And it does. I found that this dotting tool, I went through all the tools in the box and just tested out what they look like, the texture they create and everything. And I think this dot tool, like for all I know, this is literally what it's made for. This one's pretty solid. I probably did it like half an hour ago. And then to clean it, I've just been sticking it into other clay. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know how to get a smooth top and the hole. Okay, I did it. It was very tedious and I have to do this 100 times and it already feels like a lot of effort, but it is like methodical and repetitive, which honestly is what I'm looking for in a hobby because I want to be able to listen to an audiobook while I'm doing it. So I mean, that's good enough. One down. I'll check in with you, I don't know, when the set's done, when something happens, when I convince Liam to help me. Hi, hello, it's been a minute. It's a different season, it's a different month, it's different hair. I keep not updating you because when I'm actively doing the craft, I can't talk to you because I'm wearing this. And then I don't want to update you after because this leaves the craziest marks on my face. What I decided to test, okay, good to know, they are droppable. I wanted to see if I could sand them. That was just an idea that came to my mind and it did indeed work. So I found this random block of sandpaper so they don't look like this anymore, and I don't have to spend so much time wetting it and trying to smooth it out and getting like the letter smooth. So I'm officially done all of them and I'm done half of sanding them. Here are the ones I have left. There's 100 of them. I learned there are 100 letters in a Scrabble game. And here's the process. Let me show you from beginning to end. It's so interesting. First of all, I look adorable. First, because the edges are kind of sharp, I will do the front. And some of them I've made really thick by accident, and so then I flip it over and do the back, and sometimes I have to do this for a while. And sometimes it's digging into my fingers, and I sand my fingers down, which is good for my calluses, honestly. And then when that's done, I'll go on the edge. And this is hard because it like digs in and like makes little holes. So I just went out today and bought 2 more. And then I do the corners really quickly. Usually I'm not this close to my face. I should probably wear goggles too, I don't know. So that's what I do. And honestly, like, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but I can really only do like 10 at a time because just the way that I have to hold it, it hurts my hand. And then I'm gonna paint them all. I am going to resin them because this sound of like rubbing them together or dropping them, I want it to sound more like marbles, so I'm gonna resin them. So I did invest in a proper respirator. I'm gonna have all the windows open. I have gloves. I've got the resin. Quick update on my book. I listened to the intro of the audiobook. There is somebody else who wrote an intro to the book, Terry White, which was basically just saying how good the book is. And then the intro was how not to be a girl. And it was just about like societal norms and what she means by unlikable female characters, where the word unlikable came from, and how she's going to discuss certain things in here, like popular movies, not getting too niche into things because she loves movies. And I don't know if she's a filmmaker, a film critic maybe. And the book is going to be broken up into 9 kind of archetypes that you see as unlikable female characters in media: the bitch, the mean girl, the angry woman, the slut, the train wreck, the crazy woman, the psycho, the shrew, the weirdo, and give examples of that and challenge that and what it means for how we interpret things and misogyny and all of that. So I guess roll some B-roll of me finishing up these, and then I'll be able to tell you about the first section and what I thought about it. Commentary over the top. I never talked about my initial inspiration of this, which was when I was in high school. There was this boy and we always went to his house for movie nights, this big group of friends, and he had this magnet board in his hallway where it was all of these letters that looked just like this. And every time we went, we would play this little game where you would try to steal, without him noticing, all the letters from your name. So you could only like take one every time we were there. It was like this silly little contest. And I thought, how cute would it be to have a whole Scrabble board, because it's my favorite game, to have a whole bunch of letters that looked like this. I painted it with this acrylic paint set that I bought that I'll show you in a minute. Some of these clips are out of order. I tried to do a black letter and it did not look good, so I ended up going with white. This was my first experience using resin. They never fully dried. You'll see my family make fun of me for it in a second. Also, I completely forgot to put the score of each letter on the tiles. And while I was working on the tiles, I did start the fruits that I planned to do from the beginning. So I carved up a mango to the best of my ability. I made an avocado, a slice of citrus, basically some things that you would have already seen me do in the painting series. I wanted to revisit for this episode. So I've officially finished all of my Scrabble pieces. They're sitting right here. They're still like a little bit tacky, so I'm not gonna pick them all up and put them in a bag quite yet, but I will cut to a clip in just a minute of like us actually playing with them. But let me tell you what I have learned about resin, having never like watched any educational content and just like figuring it out as I go. Obviously, I'm gonna make mistakes along the way. This is what learning a new hobby is for me, and I love it. So I also went ahead and did all of the fruit I've talked to you about. I made a strawberry and an avocado, a banana, a slice of, I don't even know, blood orange or grapefruit. I did a watermelon, I did a mango. I've also made like a garlic that didn't really turn out to look like a garlic. I have some of them here now. They are still, like I said, a little bit tacky. I think the only resin tip I've ever really seen is when people are pouring it and they use like a heat gun or a hairdryer or whatever to pop the bubbles. Never heard anybody talk about resin outside of that. So one thing that I've learned is I do not have the patience. I don't think it's good for me because I will do the resin and I have to wait like days for it to solidify or harden or cure or whatever the right word is. And if something goes wrong in that process, and then I would have to start over. Like, it's not super fun. I wish kind of I did Mod Podge, but I don't know if that would make the same really glossy idea that I want. And also I think it might yellow over time. I don't know for sure, but here's something that went wrong. Is I put all of these on the desk last night. I'll show you. To dry, I finished it all. I did this side, right? You saw that. And then I let it dry, and then I flipped it over after a couple days, and I did this side just last night. And if you can see, these ones here have an interesting little black fuzziness to them is because my husband was doing laundry and threw a bunch of the clothes just like over the back of the couch, which is my kitchen, living room, office, and art studio now. So it's my own issue for not having a real space for it. But I told everyone my stuff's drying, make sure you don't touch it. I know it's so like, you want to touch it so bad because it's so shiny and glossy, but don't do it, and everyone listens. But then Rob's doing laundry and throwing the clothes everywhere, and a pair of pants lands right on the desk. And I guess he doesn't notice, and so I come out hours later, and there's a pair of my sweatpants just lying across the resin. So it is now embedded in the resin, which, you know, makes for a much more personalized piece of Scrabble if they weren't already. And I just know that if I was doing this as like a business, I guess one, I would take it more seriously and I would have a proper space for it and I would take every precaution. But yeah, I don't know if I could take having an issue a week into a process and then like having to start again. So I'm obviously not going to. I think perhaps you can sand resin. I think that might be a thing. And then you can just do a coat over top. I really don't care enough to do that. But another thing that I learned is if two pieces are touching, this should be obvious to anyone who has a brain, which isn't me. But even if they're just slightly touching, they will peel the paint or the resin off of one another. So don't let them touch. Also, if you put it down and there's like even beads of resin underneath, like if you're doing one side and then you fully let it dry and then you flip it over and you do the other side and everything is dry, any beads of resin left behind are gonna stick to your piece, which I guess just didn't occur to me. So I need a whole new piece of parchment paper every time, or wax paper, or I'm sure again that there are things that I don't know, but I could dry it properly. I also learned that you can't really tell, or I can't really tell sometimes, how well coated I have done it. So with my avocado that I did last night, the front was perfect. And then I flipped it over last night and I did the back, and I thought I was putting a really thin layer, but I guess there were some drips overnight and there were pools, and now my front has imperfections in it because it dripped and squished. And if I try to peel that off, I think I'll take the paint with it. It happened with my banana too. It's got like flat spots on it. Also, something that I learned about resin is, well, I already knew that, well, maybe I'm wrong about this actually, but I figured that I would be ruining any paintbrush that I used, which is correct. Like, this is solidified in resin now. Maybe there's a way to clean this, or if I cleaned it in the moment, there's ideas that people would have to offer me. But something else that I didn't think about is don't use a used paintbrush. No matter how clean it looks, if there's any paint whatsoever remaining, it'll interact with the resin and it'll just be painting. So some of my Scrabble pieces have red letters now instead of white. So I do need to go over that again with white, but I don't think I'm gonna go over it again with resin because it is just not a lot of effort, but it's too much effort for something so small and silly. Okay, so just every time we play one, we have to pull out the appropriate letter and remember how much it's worth. For some reason, I didn't think to write the numbers.
I think those,
Don't act like you didn't just stick out of your mouth.
What? I didn't.
Don't act like you didn't just.
You guys, I'm trying to ASMR.
Sorry. Leave me, lift your banana on the floor.
Eat all bully. You guys are so annoying. Oh, they're all stuck.
Mine has hair stuck to it.
I just pulled paint right off of this.
Yeah, it's tragic. Just show the camera your letters.
Hey, you're looking, kid.
Nice, I'm not.
These are idiots.
You got a Z first round?
Or backwards S, I can't quite tell.
Oh, it has a line on the bottom. Ooh, what if you get extra points if your color scheme is really pretty?
Ooh.
No, because
What if you get it so all your letters are actually legible?
What if you get it so they're not all sticking together?
Mine are literally sticking to my leg.
I picked one up with my toe. Hey guys, let's play with our
Are they stuck to your finger? This is my most powerful thing I've ever done. Look. An X right in the middle. I can't, I won't let go.
double axis.
Double axis. That's why I put is. Because I was preparing. At least they fit in the squares.
That's your only good.
The colors are pretty.
Yeah, but the lint in them.
That's my bad. Does anyone have an N?
We're not trading.
I want to do another big
letters.
word.
I do have an N.
Can I trade you
Don't
for
you?
an E?
No, that's not worth.
All my letters are different color now.
Oh, that's fun.
Which word do you think is the most impressive? Personally, that's kind of nuts. Oh, but Rob cheated, so. I've been feeling a little directionless with the clay. This happens to me every time I'm doing this art series. Like, I feel like I need to have a goal. So what I've decided to do is I saw on Pinterest somebody who had made a tic-tac-toe board of fruit. And so I thought, let's just nab that idea for myself, because how cute would it be to have like a strawberry shaped board, and then half the pieces are strawberries and half the pieces are something else that goes with strawberries, or another fruit, or the leaf of a strawberry. I can't remember what hers was because it was a couple weeks ago now, but because I was already thinking about game stuff with Scrabble, let's transition it into tic-tac-toe. I'm gonna roll out some of this and then shape it into a strawberry, and then I have to make the dividers that are gonna make the like tic-tac-toe checker board thing. And I think it'll be a nice activity that I clearly have an idea of what I want it to look like afterwards, rather than just making random things and not knowing what I'm doing with them. This turned out to be the perfect next project for me because I've already done the basics of cutting and wetting and smoothing and drying the clay, but now it's about connecting multiple pieces together. So the first thing I did was roll it out. I used these coasters to try to make everything like even. Getting it to the same thickness with my rolling pin, it kind of worked. And then I drew a picture of a strawberry and cut it out. And from here I started smoothing the edges and then realized that's not what I should have done, because I need an edge to my tic-tac-toe board. So that's what I'm rolling out these pieces for. And I'm scoring and wetting and just trying to figure out how to make it all connect. And it ended up working out perfectly. The only thing that I struggled with was this part where I'm blending the pieces together, because I had to take away clay from both spots, and it ended up creating a lot of holes and divots and imperfections because I was taking clay that was needed for structure and moving it into a different spot. Then the tic-tac-toe part, I didn't know if I needed to square them off or I needed to make them rounded. Eventually I just did this. Definitely another bit of a struggle making it even and straight and clean. And then I started working on the shapes. So I decided to do leaves and tiny strawberries. Originally I was gonna do the inside of the strawberry like I saw in the Pinterest photo, and I wanted the full strawberries to be a contrast, but then I ended up just painting a full strawberry as the tic-tac-toe board. Anyway, I painted all my pieces. You might have seen this clip in a previous vlog. I resined it and was all done. I have completed my strawberry. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it's fun and it serves its proper purpose. And I just love this sound. So I've decided to do another tic-tac-toe board to take all of my learnings and move it on to the next one. I found that the girl who I saw on Pinterest, her name's Amanda Eve, and she actually has a whole business, a whole TikTok account dedicated to these tic-tac-toe boards. It wasn't just one time. I love all of hers. They're so cute. She did like a Lucky Charms one. That's my favorite. There was a coffee one. I feel like I am incapable of coming up with my own ideas because all of hers are so good. Something I didn't see there though is bees. So I thought I would do a honeycomb shape for the board. And then I would do little bees and little flowers. I've listened to the first 2 sections of Unlikable Female Characters, and I really like it so far. We have covered, first section was about quote unquote the bitch. The second section was the quote unquote mean girl. Basically how these archetypes became like part of pop culture, and then even like the etymology behind the word bitch, and then why historically people have been turned off from this character, how it's often about a woman who is ambitious and greedy, and how the attitudes would be perfectly and are perfectly acceptable in media from men, but how actresses have fought to like get to play the bitch character who has no real motive besides it being completely self-serving, and how it was so hard to get this character in media unless they were going to serve as like a morality lesson. She's talking about movies, but she also will go more into TV because naturally on a longer spanning experience, you get to know a character more and you get to see, you know, multiple facets of their personality. It's tough to know because I don't really watch a lot of TV. I think she spoiled a good amount of Succession, but I haven't watched it, so I don't know how much would really be a spoiler. She talked about like how to get away with murder and Scandal, but didn't talk too much about the actual plot of those ones. Talked about also in that section how language has evolved and how the word bitch is allowed on TV now, and like how work bitch was muted at a certain time and now they can play it, and how the phrase resting bitch face came to be. At this point, I've got my honeycomb like this, and instead of doing the scoring on the top and adding like a lip, I'm gonna go on the outside and create a wall that way. And then what I saw Amanda Eve doing is, like I said, my issue is I was creating like little pools, but what she does, and it's probably standard and makes sense, is creating these like little, I don't know what you would call them. I wanna call them stints, but I don't know if that's right. But just a way to blend it by adding clay rather than smoothing and taking away the clay that's already there, and that can help connect it all. So that's what I'm gonna do next. The next section was about the mean girl. It talked about the movie Mean Girls and how the mean girl archetype has come to be. It also talked about one of my favorite movies, Jawbreaker. I brought up this interesting point about women's rage and how not just like the typical misogynistic idea of Hollywood accepting men's rage over women's rage, but the idea that oftentimes, which I wouldn't have even really been able to call out, but men's rage often tends to be in media directed at like the system. Men are allowed to be mad at the system, but women's rage, even when it's explored, is often there's one specific experience or one specific person that her rage is all being funneled towards. And so we allow that type of rage, but it often doesn't take into account the entire span of oppressive or abusive or harmful systems. I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna keep listening. The next section is The Slut, and it's talking about Sex in the City first, which is another thing I haven't really seen, but I understand obviously the ideas of these shows, the characters that exist within them, and she's doing a great job of summarizing things but not feeling like she's talking about one thing too long and hammering home like this is this character and this is who it represents, and here's another character and here's how they play off of each other. It's just like she talks to you as if you know, and she's reminding you. Pottery related injury. 5 seconds ago, I dropped an X-Acto knife straight onto my big toe. Somehow it didn't draw blood, but it hurts. Last night it basically looked like I was holding a seance in here because I was trying to keep all the edges of the tic-tac-toe board from cracking. I refilled them a little bit, which is very satisfying, and now it's drying over there. And while it continues to do so, I'm gonna do the flowers and the bees. I listened to the next 3 sections, the next 3 archetypes or prototypes or whatever it was, and I can't find my book. somehow. Don't know what they were called. I don't have anything like Scribd doesn't give me anything. It just says chapter 1, chapter 2. So I think it was the slut, and then it was the train wreck, and then I don't remember what came after that. I did really like the train wreck section though. It was talking about how women are so much less forgiven than men for being messy characters, or they have to have a reason behind their messiness. And in the slut section, it was just talking about the progress that women have made showing like sexual freedom on screen, and when censors started coming in and changing what we were allowed to see. They talked about some horror movies and like The Virgin and who's dying in movies. They talked about the Jezebel, and I continue to think she's doing a great job of covering many topics all at once. While waiting for my honeycomb board to dry, because it's gonna take, like these take about a day. The board is on day 3 of drying. So while I was doing that, I decided to start a little side project. See if you can figure out what it is as I make it. You probably won't. So I started with a big hunk of clay, and then I squished it down and I made little indents. It might look like a flower that you just saw me also sculpt, but I'm making indents in each of the petals as well as the middle. And now with this piece, I'm making it into a donut shape and stretching it out until it fits on my finger. Then I painted it green and resined it, all of that in the 3 days while that's still been drying. And I have a little ring paint palette. I saw this on Pinterest and I thought, I can make that. I have absolutely no idea if resin will be wipe cleanable, but I can now just put a little dot of black, a little dot of yellow, a little white, and I can paint my bees and my flowers and be done. For some reason, this is my favorite thing I've made. It is god awful ugly. It's chunky and it's thick and it's not like, you know, pretty. It looks like the first time somebody has ever touched clay, this is what they would make. But it makes me so happy, and I'm gonna see if it works. My biggest fear is that it's gonna get stuck, and so I'm scared to put it on fully. It fits me really well, but you know how sometimes rings can get stuck in your finger and you have to wiggle them off? Like, this might crack if I have to do that. What I'm thinking though is, should I make the wings white, or should I add some iridescent, like find some glitter, or should I maybe just resin the wings and make them glossy? Just like on the honeycomb, I'm thinking I might just make it look like there's some poured honey on it, and then just resin the honey so the rest of it is matte and then it actually looks like real honey. I know I can make the bee's face black or yellow. I wanted to do black, but now I don't know if you can see his features as well. I know bees are more of a bright yellow, but I just wanted it a little bit muted. I think the trick for this ring is to not overfill these holes, and I think I've already messed up a little bit, but I'm doing okay. And with that, test A and test B are now done. Now that I'm done with these two, I can continue and just quickly run through the rest of them. I'm also done with the Unlikable Female Characters book. And again, I've misplaced it. I haven't seen it since I talked to you last. I'm not sure where I put it. I hope I didn't return it to the library. But anyway, the last sections were the psycho, the shrew, and the weirdo. I think that as the book went on, it got a little more basic and a little preachier. And I liked the fact-based stuff that we were talking about before, and all of the movie titles and the stats and everything. And then it started getting just a little more a personal statement as opposed to an informative piece of work. And I just didn't love the tone as it went on. It felt more passionate because it felt more personal to her. But it felt less passionate, like she really wanted to talk about it. She was just like throwing stuff at the wall by that point. It felt less edited. And I think that what I feel is that she probably wrote this great essay and really wanted to pull apart and write a think piece essentially on Amy Dunn, because that was the essay that talked the most about one single piece of work and explored it fully and gave all her thoughts, and just, it was really well put together. And then the rest of it was just a little more chaotic and was just there to kind of fill the pages. I didn't disagree with, I was gonna say, most anything, but I can't think of anything I disagreed with. Definitely when you're making broad exclamations in a book like this, it's gonna say things like women are never allowed to be this and men are always this. But then some of her examples didn't really land because I don't think that those men have gone without critique or are glorified. But I see what she was saying, and like the general vibe of media, I completely agree. Overall, I'm gonna give it a 3. Like, that's obviously not a terrible rating, but I don't think it said anything that I haven't heard of or thought of before. And because of that, I know that it's necessary for other people to hear these things, and I feel like I would recommend it, but I don't feel like I would broadly recommend it like it's going to change anybody's perspective who already like is online enough to be watching my content and like reading things that I read or listening to me talk about books. I don't think this is going to change your life, but it's a decently put together essay collection. And I need to listen to something else now, so I picked up something that I thought would be a good companion. And that's The Black Guy Dies First, Black Horror Cinema from Fodder to Oscar by Robin R. Means Coleman, PhD, and Mark H. Harris. Now, when I picked this up, I didn't know that it was full of full color images, and I just figured that out. So I think I might tandem read this when there are full sections that are more like essays. I will listen, because also I don't have like 8 hours worth of projects still. So I'll listen to it while I'm working on stuff, but I'll also be reading it physically because I can see sometimes there are just lists. Like, it starts out with the whole idea of the horror trope of the black guy dying first, and how cinema has leaned towards certain situations and how racism is prevalent. And it talks about at the beginning like the actors who have had the most deaths in movies, and then it just lists the movies, and I feel like that's kind of exhausting to listen to. Alien 3, 1992, Mimic, 1997, Gothica, 2003, Secret Window, 2004, Legion, 2010, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna go work on everything, finish it up, decide if I still wanna do a whole nother project, and then review this at some point. And I'll see you later. My tandem read is going really well. I just got through the section that is about stereotypes. I was listening to that. Really similar to the unlikable female characters. It talks about that girl and this girl. This one talked about, you know, the witch doctor, the ooga booga, etc. Various roles that people are placed in and how they're used, how they're exploited, and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at with this. I am not happy with this, and I really thought I would be. I thought the drips of honey would be the answer, and maybe like it looks okay to you, but how much matte there is here just is not working for me. Perhaps this concept could have been better if I used oil paint and it didn't dry down so matte, or just like a different type of acrylic. I don't know that much about paint. And then it could be just like a little shiny and then pure gloss, but the matte with the gloss, I feel like on camera it's fine, but in person it just like looks unfinished. So I do think I'm gonna end up resining the entire thing. And it'll still look like drips, so that's fine. So I'm going to resin that and all of my bees, but I'm gonna wait until I actually do my next project. Here's my, how am I trying to show this to you? Here are my bees. I don't wanna be wasteful with like gloves and brushes, and I had to have the window open for hours, so I'm just gonna wait until I'm done my next and final project, and then I'll resin it all together. But something that I'm thinking about with my bees is I do think they're cute, but freaking Amanda Eve just posted, literally 4 hours ago, posted her next tic-tac-toe board, and it's freaking bees. And my issue with any artistic pursuit is that I have a hard time coming up with my own idea and then not looking at inspiration and feeling like I can improve it, but then by improving it, I end up copying someone else's. So that's why I was happy about the bees, but now I look at her bees and I'm like, why didn't I do the texture on the wings like that? Why didn't I make them like furry like that? Because mine are just straight lines. It could have been textured. And so now I find myself wanting to change mine. Hers isn't a honeycomb board, it's a flower board. It looks so pretty. I just think she's so talented, but I love her stuff better than mine, and now I have a hard time looking at mine and liking it when I liked it yesterday. I don't think that's particularly interesting for you, but on my journey of creativity, I just want you to know I'm still really struggling. But anyway, I'm gonna move on to my final project. I thought something I could do for the last time with clay, at least in this video, is think about when I'm scrolling through like Anthropology or Urban Outfitters, and I never buy anything, but I like to look and I like to add things to my cart, and then my cart slowly like goes out of stock, and it's like cathartic because I know I don't need any of those things. And I was thinking, what is something that if I scrolled through the website and I looked at and I went, I want that, but could I make it? So what came top of mind to me was jewelry holders. I see these all the time to hold your necklaces and rings, and I bought so many rings lately, and I thought this would be perfect. Also, in every single series in this video now, I'm making something cactus related. I did multiple cactus paintings and then took one of my paintings and transitioned it into a cross stitch, and now I'm turning a cactus into a jewelry holder. So I'm basically just taking everything I learned from my other project and making something a little more 3D with making things the right shape and making sure they have stability, scoring, using my slurry or whatever it's called to attach everything kind of like glue, blending everything together. And then because it's a sculpture, I had to stick things in it to make sure it was holding its shape as it dried. Before it fully dried, I used one of these tools to make texture for my cactus, and then I sanded it down and I painted it a couple different colors. I made these little flowers that I think I lost the footage of or I just didn't film, and then I ended up using some super glue to attach it to the little base that I made. I'm really excited to see my rings on this tray. And then came the resin process, where I realized my biggest mistake was how fast I was mixing the resin. I've always done the right ratio, but sometimes it stayed tacky forever. And what I've learned is that when it says to mix it slowly for 5 minutes, it means slow. And so at this point, I'm doing all of the final projects that I have. The fruit that I started way at the beginning, the honeycomb, the bees, the flowers, and the cactus all together. And my resin recipe, thank goodness, turned out perfect. I have now finished all of my projects and finished my book, which I'm excitingly giving 5 stars. I think it perfectly covered this history and this arc, or really like wave of Hollywood and the stories that they're interested in, the stories that they're willing to give money to, and the way that people are consistently being targeted and stereotyped, but also the way that people have found their place and their purpose and persevered, and how we are in this great time of cinema where we can get all of these incredible stories. There was a lot of focus on certain directors and actors repetitively. There were definitely some moments where I felt like I've already kind of heard this before, story-wise, but conceptually each section is definitely different and has a different goal. This is something that you shouldn't read super quickly because it's more of like a coffee table style book that you want to flip through occasionally towards a different section every time, just to learn about different things. There's a section about horror movies from the Caribbean. There was a whole section about women. There was a section about queer characters and actors and how they're portrayed, and intersectionality. There was a lot to get out of this, and I quite enjoyed it. It's a really good pairing with something that I loved earlier this year. It came from the closet. So if you're interested in similar stuff to me, pick those up. Now, as far as my projects, okay, I did resin the whole honey board, and I do like it better now. I really like my bees. I'm happy with how they turned out. I think they're adorable. I also re-sanded and resined. Honestly, like this video, I learned more about resin than clay because I didn't really use a whole bunch of different clays or try a whole bunch of different techniques, you know, but I did learn that less is more with resin. Like I don't have to slather it on. I could get both sides coated and still have it on the parchment to dry. And what I'm gonna do with my 3 favorites is turn them into fridge magnets. And then lastly, we've got the cactus, which I'm very happy with her. It didn't turn into a dish because just the way that I dried it, it didn't go as bowl formed as I would have hoped, but I'm fine with it being flat. And I added the little flowers, and now we'll be able to see if all my jewelry fits on it and if it looks as pretty as I'm imagining. I love this. It's exactly what I needed. It serves the purpose that I wanted it for. And it's funny how I started out this video saying I don't want to make useful things. And then my favorite thing ended up being the useful thing. It's funny how I end all of these videos and I'm like clearly done with the projects. Like I had enough of painting by the month's end. I had enough of cross stitching. I've had enough of clay work, but in all of the scenarios, I want to make more. Like there is definitely this part of me that wants to continue to do things, but just like the last 2 situations, I know I probably won't, or I won't to the capacity that I know I have time for. So am I still looking for my perfect artsy passion? I guess so. I don't know what the next one will be or when on earth it would be, but thanks for coming along with me for all of these weird pursuits. And I guess let me know your thoughts on what I should try next in the comments below. Bye!